I wanted to tell folks that the whole climate change problem is not so dismal and dire. There's a pretty good plan to go forward, potentially possible. So, first of all, 25% of all the energy used in the world today is renewable. So, if we really thought that the worst case scenario was going to happen, which would be that the North Pole melts in no summer sea ice, that triggers off a set of chain reactions. So by the 2030s, we're having massive sea level rise from Antarctica falling apart and so forth. So one is we could cut to just use renewable energy now. If 25% of our supply of energy is renewable, it just means we have to radically change the way we live. But we're talking about mining our house with TNT. This way we stop mining our house with TNT. And then, sorry, you can't, buy three new Mercedes next year. And you may have to telecommute 3 days a week until we have enough electrical power online for everyone to do what they would like to do. But what they like to do is not working. It is using far too much energy based on what we have available as renewable today. So the renewable energy is there today if we chose to simply cut our energy use by 75%. And if we really saw how every damn gallon of gas actually melts 200 pounds of Arctic sea ice. So basically, there's a relationship on our fossil fuel burning where about 10 times as much sea ice melts per year above historical averages in gigatons as we put CO2 into the atmosphere by human means. So we put in 35 gigatons roughly annually. I might be off, it might be 20, but let's just go with 35 for the moment. And we have about 300 to 350 gigatons of sea ice melt every year. So every a gallon of gas weighs 8 pounds. It binds to those two O's, though, and that puts it to 20 pounds in the atmosphere because you're belching carbon. Carbon bonds to the oxygen atmosphere, so it increases the mass of what's out your tailpipe by 2.5 times. Um, so, um, gallon gas is 20 pounds, so that burns 200 pounds of Arctic sea ice based on that formula. So 10 gallons is a ton of Arctic sea ice. So basically, every time you fill up your car, you're melting 1 to 2 tons of Arctic sea ice. Um, so the good news is that this is enough energy. If we really chose to deal with this seriously, we could probably convert over right now. Although, like I said, the whole economic system would be more based around maybe something like a universal basic income, something to keep to create an immediate transition because we're simply all business as usual would have to stop. But if you're putting TNT into your basement um, and that's going to go off, you stop loading it. If we're loading explosives into the foundation of our house every time we turn our car on, every time we turn our heater or air conditioner on. But this can be brought into balance. We can slowly build up the amount of renewable energy we have, drastically stop our use of it now, and focus on cultivation and restoration of natural habitats. Once those natural habitats are brought back, we can actually drive down the carbon in the atmosphere. So we're going to go through a valley of death, so to speak, which means no matter what we do, even if we stopped using fossil fuels tomorrow, there's may be a couple of degrees of temperature changes baked in, which will lead to huge amounts of the world being underwater. But it won't be so bad. We'll lose Bangladesh, we'll lose parts of Thailand and Southeast Asia, we'll lose parts of Florida. But we could spare the worst of it. Um, I mean, we would lose New York and Hong Kong and all the coastal cities, probably with 2 degrees of climate change is baked in. That's if we stopped using the fuels now. But the point is that we can bring this back. We can bring back things that we are going to lose. So, for example, the whales have left the Gulf of Maine, but they've migrated north. The whales, for the moment, can choose where they go to. They can gradually, life in the sea will migrate towards the poles as it gets hotter and hotter. And they're moving up to Nova Scotia and parts up there. So, if we restore the Amazon and restore the kelp beds and restore the temperate rainforests of the Pacific and down in Chile as well, if we restore the mangrove swamps and all these natural systems, we can pull this out so that your grandchildren will see those whales returning to the Gulf of Maine. So there's a hopeful message here, and obviously, for me, the bittersweet aspect of having to now focus my life around climate change and figuring out how I can help is that all of my life I have believed in the re-enchantment of the world, of a world where we know our neighbors, where things are slower, where we're doing more creative work, like being researchers or musicians or potters, rather than salesmen and bankers and insurance agents. More humanistic pursuits, and where we respect and take care of our wilds. Because where wilderness is, there is magic, and where there's no wilderness, there's no magic. And if we exterminate and then reintroduce big species, it's not the same. The elephants have a very complicated culture that goes back 100,000 years or longer, that they've passed on, the wild elephants remaining. So I'm not sure that it would be the same thing if you cloned them or something after they had gone extinct in the wild. So it could take millions and millions of years to rebuild the cultural systems in our animal brothers and sisters, because they do have cultures. So if we can stop it at 2 degrees C, some birds and animals and things like that will be able to migrate north. But if we have to do this immediately, and the benefit is we can change our relationship with Earth so that we have a real beautiful and astonishing planet, the one that we received and we restore, instead of it's just very shameful that we've done is created strip malls and gas stations, but we also have a lot of beauty in our civilization. So my name is Alexander Hagen. Have a good night.